Did you know there is a phase in the app design process that'll allow you to validate your ideas faster? Well, if you didn't know, I'm here to talk about prototyping. Yes, prototyping. It's one of the fastest ways to validate your ideas with users. Now, if that's your jam like it is mine, let's get into the basics and join the fun. Hello, my name is Anticio Duke, product design strategist from Chicago, Illinois, and we're talking about prototyping today. It's going to be a basic, high-level introduction to prototyping, but this will give you a really good starting point to help you start to validate your ideas and take your designs to the next level. Now, if you haven't done it, feel free to subscribe as we talk about design, life, strategy, and all things fun. So prototyping, what is it? Prototyping in the design phase, I'd like to believe, comes and happens early and often. And this is because you want to start validating your ideas and testing them with users frequently. This helps move the process along very fast and gives you instant feedback at every stage of the design process. Previously, I was using InVision. Unfortunately, they are no longer around, but there's other tools like UXPin, there's Axure, there's so many other tools that you can use, especially if you're working with paper prototypes. Now, I'm an advocate for paper before pixels, but in this example, we're gonna walk through that entire process. Now, I'm just gonna jump into my iPad and start to talk through the phases in which I'd like to start the prototyping process. Because once you understand the fundamentals and understand how this process works, the better off you'll be in moving through the phases of design. So we're just gonna talk about prototyping. And essentially, it is a phase of interaction. This, again, demonstrates the design, how things will be laid out and structured on the page. You can do this in wireframes, in visual UI states, and more. But it also checks the functionality and gives the user an idea of what to expect once it's live. Now, you can do all of this without code. And this will give you the feedback you need so that your users, your ideal users, can give the feedback about what it is you're going to present or build for them. I've come up with a framework called the 3 Ps of prototyping. I'll link that video so that you can get an understanding of what that framework is and how it will help you in this process. But we're going to look at 3 things essentially when we're prototyping. One is the phase of movement. And that has everything to do with going from an initial state to an end state, essentially point A to point B, and what that looks like and entails throughout the process. The next, we're going to talk about size. And this has everything to do with elements. So things could shrink and get smaller in volume, or they can scale and get larger in area. But size plays a major role in prototyping as well. And the last thing we'll talk about is opacity. Now, opacity has an interesting way of revealing itself. So essentially, when one thing is at 0%, this means it's disappeared, it's gone, it's vanished. Conversely, when something is at 100% opacity, that means it's true to visibility, meaning you can see all of it. So 100% is true visibility, 0% is it's gone. And opacity is a really cool way to adjust things when you're prototyping for your apps. Now in this, let's look at a simple example we're going to talk about with a mobile app. This is our screen, and we have really quickly, we're just going to have some product images. And these images sit front and center on our mobile app. So essentially you're scrolling through. If this is a quote unquote e-commerce mobile app, there's another state that has to happen. So essentially, when I tap on that product image, I'm now taken to maybe the product detail. So things change. I see a larger image of that product, maybe some metadata here around what it costs, color, detailed description, and maybe there's a call to action that sits here. You can add it to cart, buy now, or something of that nature. Okay, so very simple. We've seen these patterns before, and we're going to work through them on the prototyping aspect. So this means that this is your first state. So this is where you start. And this is the second state. This is where you end. Okay. Now, when you're prototyping, you start to then think through what is the end state. And that's what we're going to work through today. My tool of choice that I'd like to use today, and I'll show you, is Figma. Figma has a really good end-to-end workflow. So I use it for wireframing, for visual UI design, as well as prototyping. And we'll check out that feature. And in the prototyping feature of the tool, there are functions called Smart Animate. Now, Smart Animate, we'll take a look at that briefly today. This has some cool things that you can work through. We'll look at, out of this Figma tool, we're going to look at connection points. And these points are how we move or what we connect one element or screen to the next. So they're connection points. Next, we're going to look at those interaction settings, how to adjust those when we need to for different reasons that we'll get into a little later. And then last thing, I briefly touched on this earlier, is states. So user states, moving from one image or start position to the second in position. Now, with these things in mind, I think having this understanding and looking at these functions of prototyping, you are well on your way to then grasp the functions that we'll work through today. Now, this is basic, and I will add a part 2 to go to the more advanced side of things, but this will get you well on your way to get started with a functionality in prototyping. So I'm going to get out of this jazz. I'm going to get more comfortable, go behind the computer, and then let's get started. Join me. Thanks for checking out the other videos. So in this video, we're going to jump directly into my computer and we're going to look at my Figma file. This is just a early kind of basic workflow to prototype. Many times when you're looking to validate an idea or to get that idea out, you want to show how it's going to function in the real world. So we're going to set up Smart Animate. We're going to do some basic interactions here on mobile view. Let's dive in. Okay, so on the screen, you'll see 3 things. One, this is my asset folder. So I love Jordans, by the way. So you'll see a group, actually a frame that has an image with the text on top. You have a title. This is going to represent my text sort of line, and then a call to action. So these are the elements that I'm going to use here. On this first home screen, you're going to see all of them put together. So in group form here in this frame, you'll see the first group 1, group 2, group 3. And that's essentially just a large image with text. And then on this next screen, you're going to see me working through what I want to happen when a user selects one of these options. So essentially, if they're looking at these items, these products, and they select one, this will be the detail page for that particular selection. What I'm going to do is I'm in the design area here, where you have all your properties. I'm going to just select prototype. And in prototyping, you have new criteria here, some new selections. I don't want anything scrolling I don't want to adjust this in any way at the moment. I simply want to prototype. So I'm going to connect one screen to the next. In this example, I'm selecting Jordan number 5. So I'm going to take that and drag that node onto the screen here. And that's essentially on tap. As soon as I do that, I have now other options that I can change that to. My trigger event is me tapping on this Jordan 5 product selection. So that's the trigger that's starting the action. Then I want that action to navigate to this destination, which would be this view. So tap here, move to this screen. And I want it to be changed based on this animation. So I'm going to switch this to Smart Animate. Normally you have a version to guide how this prototype happens. You have ease in, ease out, and you have parameters here. What I like to usually do is do ease in, ease out, because this gives a more natural flow, a natural bounce when you are prototyping. So you can change the duration and the time related to that as well. So now that we have our first interaction here, I'm going to then go to my prototype and preview this. So it simply is hitting the preview presentation button here at the top. This will open the preview window into another tab, and then we'll get to testing this. Now, I really advocate for testing early and often. So we're going to do this whether it's small changes or not. So I tap this. As you can see, the image went to full screen, and then the text sort of showed outside of that. So that's one option that we have. I usually restart and then go back. So what you saw was me tapping this, the image goes full screen, the text shifts. That's one option. We can also do something else, and we can grab this text field, because that's very simple. And we're going to use this as a text option here. So what I'm going to do is align this and go and do. We're going to keep our padding around here, and I'm just going to show this as a couple of options of text, because that's what normally we'd see on a product page. So I'm just going to duplicate this. So now that we have this, I'm going to group these items as my text boxes. Now this would be showing from one to the next. Okay, I want to show text underneath this title. So we have our interaction. So I'm going to preview this once again. What I'm going to do is now let it load. I'm going to select this, and it doesn't show. Why? You'll see in this particular layer panel, we see this group of text is outside of the actual artboard. Okay, that artboard exists here. So what we want to do is take this group. I normally like to name it. So I'm going to do that and then move it into this area here. So now you'll see it sitting within this frame on this artboard. Okay, and that's what we want. So what we're going to do is preview this one once more. Now, once we select Jordan 5, you should be able to see the text here. But that's kind of jarring, meaning it jumps right into the text. I want to actually see both of them slide in, if you will. So what I'm going to do is now make a change. I'm going to restart this. So what you can do, go back into the design area, is we can actually take, knowing that we want these items in the same location on the second screen, what I'm going to do is copy these. And I'm actually going to paste them here. Okay. And then what I'll do is they're in the same location on the screen that they're supposed to be once this interaction happens. But on this initial screen, what I'm going to do is now slide them off of the actual view. And so when I do that, they're hidden essentially away from that area. Okay, so I'm going to group these so they don't get lost. Let's go title, text. And then I'm going to take the opacity down to 0. So essentially what I'm doing is saying they're in the start screen, but they're hidden. They're at 0, meaning 0 opacity, I can't see anything. And when they go to the next state, they're at 100% opacity. I can view and see them, and they're in that location. Now that I have both of them, I'm just going to preview this again. We're going to select our option and see what happens. Oh. And they just came out of nowhere. They sort of adjust and slide in. Now, the last thing we want is we're going to add a call to action here at the bottom. So I'm going to take this from our assets. I'm going to select this particular view and I'm just going to paste it here. Now, knowing that it's on the actual artboard, I'm going to move this to the bottom and then I'm going to hold Shift, arrow up. That gives me 10 pixels from the bottom, so it's 20, and I'm just going to dial that down 4 so I can have consistent padding around here. Now, in the final state, we should see this actual call to action. So similar to what we did before, I'm going to copy this because I want it to slide in. I'm going to paste it. Excuse me. I'm going to select this frame and paste it here so it lives in the same space. Then what I'm going to do is move it off of that view. And similar to what we did before, I'm going to make this opacity 0. So what should happen is that call to action after we tap that product on the final state, it should exist, 1, and 2, we want it to slide in or ease into the view. So I'm going to go back to our original. I'm going to restart this. And I'm going to tap Jordan 5, and you see that it slid up here at the top. So we'll do that again. I'm going to refresh, hit 5, it slides up. Now, every time we do this, you'll see the difference. Now you'll see from one state to the next state. And that's kind of what we want. Now we can play with styles and how this looks, as well as adjust how this slides in. So if we're going to our prototype state, this was tapped and then this is the final state. We don't have any close button or anything like that. And even tapping this, we don't have any interaction, but this is just the basic way to use Smart Animate to adjust our functionality. Now I can go in and tailor this a little bit to adjust accordingly. Now I'm going to select one ease in just to see what happens. And I'll change that duration so you can see the difference there to 800 milliseconds. Okay. So now what happens here is I'm going to preview. So we adjusted the animation style and the timing. So you'll see a little difference here. I'm going to tap 5 and you see how slow that brought elements in. This way, you get an understanding of how that happens, the speed in which you can control the interaction, and so much more. Now, again, this is basic, but we can go into some very, very extreme animations to make this look pro level. But I just wanted to show you very quickly how this functionality works. And if you ever want to go back and change or adjust that prototyping, you can make sure that you're on the prototyping feature. You can select your node flow, and this will give you a parameters view where you can then change that. So I'm staying on Smart Animate. I'm going to adjust in and out, and then I'm going to take this down a little bit more. So we can go to 150 this time. We hadn't talked about state, and we'll get into that in another video. But now you see some slight adjustments to the same destination. And now when I hit preview again, once this updates, now take a look at how this changes those parameters. Did you see how fast and how snappy that was? A lot different than before. Okay, so there you have it. Simple interaction as far as prototyping, but this gives you an idea of what to expect when using the prototype feature in Figma, Smart Animate.